Hello, good morning everyone. A quick video this morning about the daily preparation I tend to go through in terms of looking at a map, looking at a roadmap in order to try to plan ahead for the trading day or trading session to come. So I start pretty much in the same fashion every day. I'm looking here at the last few days in terms of market profile and volume profile. We can see clearly that since last week, we know Wednesday the 14th, but since last week, so Monday the 5th, where we had a shift in value from sort of 111.50 to 111 to this new sort of value sort of bracket between 112.85 and 112 effectively, and we can see that we pretty much, so we're still moving, of course. These are daily profiles, so within each day we are obviously moving up and down. You can see if I sort of expand each day, but effectively, so within that there are still, of course, trades to be had, but effectively the we can see that we're sort of moving within that sort of 112.90, 112 range. We've had a few inside days. There's an inside day here. This one isn't. There's another insider here. Here we've got an engulfing day or an outside day, which was on Monday, and then yesterday became an inside day again. So really, and you know, this is so far is not moving out of this one, you know, this 12.90, 12 range. So when we do break the range, I would expect for, you know, I would look for a move above or a move below, sort of consolidation range, hard in the morning to speak, and so this is pretty much what I'm watching here. On the, of course, I look at this on the weekly and monthly level as well. So rather than looking at daily sessions in terms of TPO and in terms of volume profile, I look at exactly the same in terms of weekly profiles and monthly profiles. And I tend to have this sort of zoom out view. So I start the bottom. I start top down. So I start with a monthly here, and from the monthly, I would identify the areas of interest, and then I would do exactly the same thing. That's another screen, but you know, that's on the weekly basis. So that's last week, that's the current week, and so on. So the exercise is pretty much the same. And what I want to do here is not so much. It's a quick video where I'm going to identify my scenario for today. It is 7:46 UK time, so GMT. We're in 15 minutes. London is going to kick in properly in terms of the market. So this is when I want to start paying attention to what's potentially going to happen until a certain time of the day, until it picks up again around 1:30 p.m. GMT time with the US session. At least this is how I break it down. So first of all, trying to check whether we have any economic announcements. It's Wednesday. If I look at the calendar, we're pretty much on to there's a CPI, a GBP, but that was overnight. Actually, sorry, it's not overnight. It's overnight for the US, but I'm not. Yeah, there we go. So again, just looking at this calendar, there isn't much today. There isn't much today. There will be tomorrow, obviously, with the ADP non-farm payroll, the Philly Fed, and things like that, which tend to move the market a bit. But today, there's no real indicator of anything in terms of the area I'm looking at, which might affect the 6E, which is the euro-dollar contract. There isn't much in the view of potential market moving announcement. So with that in mind, this range in mind, the fact that when we break this range, we will probably retrace and sort of fill in some of the massive low volume nodes that we have around here. I'd like to put in place effectively two scenarios. So I could have the up one and the down one, and at the same time I'm going to highlight the areas of possible low volume node. I have one here which I can see straight away. Well, I'm trying to combine the days before, not only looking at the last one here. So I'm taking this one into account, and this current one into account, and this previous one here into account. So, well, that's actually not what I wanted to do. Not in that direction, but I try to effectively take on board. While projecting forward, I take on board, rather than drawing from here, I draw from here, but I take on board the previous sessions. And in fact, I probably would have another one here, which would then, I could pretty much have, I guess, a single one here, which will be easier. And we go, and I get rid of that. So the less noise we have, the less lines we have, or areas of colors, the more clarity there is on the chart, and the less confusing it becomes. Just trying to get a bit better view of volume and TPO, and so here I'm sort of looking at mainly at volume, by the way, more than the TPO itself. But I'm also still taking into in mind, and I'm also looking what we've done. So if I identify an area here, well, this is pretty much has been worked on yesterday, for example. So I'm not going to draw it again, because I would consider that once it's done, it's done. An area I would quite keen to go all the way from here. I've got a single print here, which is where we are now, which is why we haven't progressed further, and we bounced back on that earlier today. But I would pretty much go all the way here as a potential area to so that's this, just to be clear, that's this area here. But I'm just taking into account only what hasn't been worked on, and we can pretty much go a bit further down here. And if you want to go further down, we can still, that would be I tend to color code them as well, so I know what would be more important, or what may have the most effect, which I haven't done up here, but anyway. So there we go. So I have a simple beginning of an up scenario or down scenario. Looking at the current session, I try to understand what happened here, and can see that we pretty much opened the session where we closed last night. We've got a pull low here, by the way, as well, which we bounced on. I can see a number of times, and effectively we opened the same area. Not much happened. We didn't, it's not any open drive or open is very boring opening with A, B, C, D, pretty much E we're pushing a bit but coming back, E, F, G, H, I bouncing back still on this sort of poor low, so working on it, but pretty much not much happening all morning until M really. Well, we could argue J, K, L. Tempting to go a little bit farther down, and anyway, and M we sort of pushed down below, and O went back, and P went a little further down, but still we bounced back on the single print, which is here, as you can see, precisely to the point, just here. So this is pretty much very often the case, and we may bounce on it once, maybe twice, maybe 3 times, sometimes a big one. But eventually we will go through it. I mean, it's possible and even likely that we will go further down. I'm trying to keep track as well of how many percentage in terms of the ATR that we've done so far within a session. This is actually not working the way I want it to work, so it will work like the way I want it to work so far, but it's indicating to me, it's meant to indicate to me how much of the ATR we've done so far today in a session as a percentage. So if this number is 100, I know we've done 35% of it, and I know there's, technically speaking, here we're on the top of the day, we've got 70 on the upside, and we pretty much from down here, from the bottom, we've got 70% as well. 70 points, sorry, or 70%, yes, but to go down as well from the bottom gives you an indication of where we are in terms of statistically in relation to the actual ATR. So with that in mind, obviously market in London is really properly opening in 6 minutes, so we'll have a better view of what's going on. But at least we've got a sort of we've got a roadmap here. We could, of course, go further back in time and add further areas of interest up and down, and you know, clearly here we've identified this. So we've got this range we talked about, and you know, we've got supply and demand, value in between. Fairly clear picture, but it's been going on for quite, you know, a week and a half, so it's always good to be cautious. It could easily be another numptieth day where you think we're going to start working on this low volume node and start exchanging contracts where we didn't, and so on. And in fact, it could well retrace back and be another day within that sort of range, which in effect can be a bit boring, but when we look within the day, we can see that IR still moves to make money, effectively. And this is what we may want to try to capture. And this is why we want to look at the opening, we want to look at the opening range, we want to look at an initial balance, and we want to try to see. And I'm not going into details of that, but you know, we want to try to understand what sort of day type we are, who's in control, who's being more aggressive, if anyone, etc., etc. So once I've got this, at the moment I'm in a. If we look again here, we can see that we've got a sort of lower node here, and we're evolving within that. We started, you know, in the morning as we described earlier. There's another one here. Point of control, of course, of the day before, or the TP, both in terms of volumes and in the TPO point of control are, you know, areas of potential support. Again, here in terms of the top of the high of the valley area in terms of volume and the TPO and things like that, which I'm of course bearing in mind, in addition to anything else I'm looking at. But this is just really to give us a quick overview of supply-demand map. Now I've got a short here, as you can tell. This is small to let's say micro euro dollar I'm looking at here, and all the other charts I'm looking at the actual full contract, since they're pretty much arbitrage to match. So when we look at the I'm not a DOM trader, but again, that's something I look at. You can tell that every 5 points we have this 200-ish, very similar liquidity pockets. Clearly, this is liquidity providers, algos, ensuring there is liquidity here. Certainly on the bid side. On the ask side, we've got the same sort of liquidity limit orders here at 12.17, and we don't have this full history because we haven't been above here yet, so we cannot see what's behind it, but I would suspect it's going to be exactly the same thing as we have here. Anyway, still very quiet for the moment, so again, I tend to start and look at my my map like that. I've got my footprint here, and I look at more granular details as to where we are. So far, very thin on the granulars of zero prints. Can see some of the absorption or past absorption levels which are being projected forward. It gives me an indication of these being usually well defended, and they are, and once they're not, they become supply and then back to demand and so on. Same here, another level. So far not very much to notice, still very quiet. I'm going to put in pause the actual, well actually it's 8 o'clock, so let's see how this opens. We might get a bit of a action here. So straight away you can see that some orders have started to come in. Right, this is something I've got another chart, which is the 30-minute chart, footprint chart, which I'll also look at here, and you've got exactly the same absorption view, and you can start. You see the market. Let me just minimize it so you can see the London market starting to kick in with a bit of action. You can see this level is clearly being traded quite a bit as we open, as the London open, sorry, and we push down fairly quickly all the way to 112.04. From 112.07 we had two larger-ish. I've got a breakdown on another screen, and these are comprised of two exactly at 1 second apart, same level, 260 contracts, presumably from the same liquidity taker. So somebody broke down a 120 contract in obviously many areas, but I've got a reconstructed tape here to another screen, which effectively shows me how it was put the orders back together, reverse algo, reverse CME algo, put them back together, and shows that it were 260 contracts, same time, 1 second apart, same level, probably the same, as I said, liquidity taker. So you can see the negative delta here. So we're moving from a 768 delta, 412 delta, decreasing but still a fairly positive delta in the last two bars to a immediate negative delta. the speed, the volume per second, as you can tell as well. See, something's happening here. Is obviously the London market opening, but you can tell that we've moved from 0.5 something, i.e. super boring and slow, to around 6 volume per second. So use the ratio obviously, but it gives us an idea of the fact the market is picking up. And apart from obviously speed, we want to see volume increasing, which obviously this is a 30 minutes chart. So, but you know, we've done 1,000 within a few minutes, as opposed to 3,700, 3,000 in previous one, and it took 30 minutes to do 1,000, 1,200, 900, 400 before. So we can see that clearly things are picking up. So this is what I tend to observe as well. Look at the details and look at the within the bars with the footprint. Just trying to put back my chart here, footprint chart. And thirdly, another, just looking at, oh, I'm looking at a micro here as well. So this is, by the way, this is why this 260 that you've seen on the 30 minutes, being a I have the full contract on the 30 minutes. Here's a micro contract, so that fits in with what you see on the DOM, in case you were wondering why we didn't see this 2 times 60 contract. If I look at my main candle chart here, we can see that this is boring. We can see that buyers have picked up. You can see how the cumulative delta for the session is evolving, so it's clearly increasing. I guess volume is picking up a little to some degree. So here we're starting the red square as the opening of the London session. And we can see that this blue bar here is an engulfing bar. So in itself, this is the same thing we were pretty much looking on for the whole week and a half, last week and a half, on daily volume profile. It's a very big range, engulfing bar, inside bars, and then we've got a move. Very often I do watch the engulfing inside days, outside days, because they tend to be a move afterwards. So it's pretty much what one wants to look at here, and there we go. So clearly we've picked up this move. I mean, if I move to the full contract, you can see that aggressive buyers are clearly kicking in and piling up and buying right at the top of the day. I say the right top of the day, doesn't really matter. I'm looking at 30 minutes candles. If you look at a 1 hour candle, 3 hours candle, 10 minutes candle, the top of the candle will be different. So I never refer to the top of a candle of a given chosen arbitrary time frame, which is in my case here 30 minutes, because it's completely irrelevant. The market doesn't work in terms of minutes, or it works in terms of value and orders and people coming in and out. So what I'm most interested in is to look at the height of the session, which we are now, and we can see like that we're pushing and buying and keep buying at all levels at the top of the session. This is not. This is clearly a strong, aggressive move. And something I want to observe. Now we can see here as well the looking at the DOM. I said I'm not a DOM trader, but if we spend a bit of time looking at the DOM here, you can see there's an iceberg here, i.e. the offer is reloading whenever liquidity is being consumed. So we can see here we've got 23, 36, 23, 25. Obviously we need to consume this liquidity all the way up, well, all the way up at each level in order to move up and carry on moving up. But until this reloads, or until this doesn't reload fast enough versus the rate of this and the size of this market orders coming in, we're not going to go anywhere. And this is pretty much what I'm trying to identify here. As you can see, I'm sure I'm not. It's 2 micro contracts here. Yes, I'm not panicking, and yes, I'm got in at 12:01. It's 12:12. This I'm slicing my orders given the sort of days we've had. So with the range and with very up and down days, and within each day, up and down. Sorry, range within each particular day. So what I try to do, I tend to slice my order rather than going all in. So obviously 2 micro euros, tiny. And the way I tend to break it down, I tend to break down my order. So I've got up to a certain moment and level, I have conviction for, or if you like, a downside view, and I would slice my order here. So when we get to a level which is precisely 112.18, which is here, then I shall add some more contracts, which doesn't have to be 2 here. It's not going to be 2 here. It's not going to be, it's not something arbitrary like that. It's calculated on the average price I want to keep, and I want to keep my average price to be close to VWAP, which is this blue line here, and I am at the moment spot on VWAP. When VWAP moves, and obviously it will as we go up, I will ensure that if we get to the level where I'm intending to carry on working on my order, adding to my order, I will ensure we at least above VWAP. We're always above VWAP. So again, it'll be here, the precise number will not be 10, and that's something I calculate on the side somewhere else on a spreadsheet which I've done myself, where I manage my entries and my orders. So again, this is not a martingale. This is not adding to loser. This is not any of that. This is managing, slicing an order. So I've got 2 contracts here. If I tell myself, okay, I can put up to 20 contracts, that's the full size I want to put in, rather than putting 20 contracts here, I started with 2, I have another 5 here, another 10, another boom, and once it's done, it's done. I won't go beyond that. I've got an overall risk limit, of course, but more to the point, I don't decide on size. I let the market decide on size. I don't decide on support and resistance, i.e. supply and demand. The market tells me what the supply and demand is, and a lot of it is in here. and the rest of it is in here and in the various screens I've showed. It's not anything arbitrary. I do not decide what the market do. I don't know. I try to guess. I try to give myself the best chance to understand where it might be going and why and how, but I certainly don't decide that, okay, this is what it's going to do or not. Incidentally, what I'm going to put here is 5 contracts, which is what I've want to do according to my spreadsheet. Again, being above VWAP is one thing, but I also want to have my average price based on a sensible area. So given here at top of the day, TPOC or VPOC will be my second short here to manage this position, and I probably want to not only be above VWAP, that's for sure, but there may well be areas where I want to keep going, or be above, or be below, or depending on how and when. So if I see here, we've got this little lower node that we had yesterday. You could also imagine that that could well be a act as a support before just entering the highest point within the value area, i.e. the point of control. So again, nothing is being decided just like that. Clearly keep pushing again. You can see this is reloading at each level, so whoever's supplying the liquidity here wants its liquidity to be utilized and keeps reloading. They want to sell at limit order, and there we go. So I suspect most of that is probably algos working, but adding to the level above, and clearly these guys here are selling, so they want the higher they sell, the better it is for them. You can see this sort of liquidity building up, and as we saw earlier on the bid. So again, this depends. This is not the way I do things all the time. It's the way I do things in the situation where we are now, and it's sort of day type we're in now, sort of week we're in now, and sort of supply and demand map we're in now. It's not a one size fit all strategy, and in a completely different situation, I would have 20 contracts. If I have 20 contracts, I want to trade. I may well go all at once. It can happen too. It really depends on the sort of. It's contextual. It's really contextual. It's not something I choose. I'm just going to pause so the video doesn't last 10 hours, and I'll unpause when it gets a bit more interesting. I'm resuming the video. It's I was recording this morning just as it was 8 a.m. It's now much later. It's 5:30 p.m. UK time, GMT time. If you remember, I was explaining this morning that I had sort of sliced up my order and divided my order into. I had 20 contracts altogether, as in the maximum, and I had added 5 contracts on the precisely here on that level here, and 112.18, which is what I have ended up doing, and so the average price was way above VWAP and above the levels that I was aiming to be to be above, which is I'm here the average price being 112.13. Overall, we did reach the point of control. That was one of the I mentioned the point of control, the VPOC and the TPOC, and that's one earlier in the video, and it was one of the support area, or one of the magnets that the market might well be attracted to, and you know, and that was my second part of my trade, where we had 5 contracts. I think it precisely won on 12/18, and then obviously, so that happened quite a while after we talked, because when I originally recorded, it was 8 o'clock, and quite a bit happened, and we went nearly there, but not quite, and I probably got taken actually at 12/18, because I think that's precisely what I was on. So here on this bar at 11, we went down a bit more and back up and back down, and then we had this this much bigger short. We had a couple of single prints from previous days here, actually, namely from this day here, which is going back all the way to the 5th of August, and here, and this hasn't even really stopped it. I mean, we bounced on the originally on the second one, and acted as support, and eventually we went way below both of the of those single prints, and we went all the way, or nearly all the way, down to a much previous point of control. I mean, still on the same day, in terms of the TPO POC, which is here, this level here, which means that effectively the euro went down quite a bit today against the dollar. Now, that was one of the area I highlighted this morning. Again, it's not. The idea is not that it's precise. It's not meant to be precise to the point, but I mean, this is good enough. And we then accumulated some contract down here in the afternoon since 1 p.m. And this is pretty much what we've been doing so far. Now, the actual we can see as we went down very quickly. So meaning we would have had, if I look at my footprint here, it was these bars here, 230, and I've lost it now, but effectively find it again. So you can tell that we went down fairly quickly, very, very aggressive selling, hitting lifting the offer, so very, very strong selling here, very aggressive. You can tell we've got a much quicker volume per second in this bar, so volume is not only increasing, but it's increasing even further in the second bar, but it's also speed is increasing as well, volume per second. The volume is increasing. The cumulative delta is obviously going in the right direction, in certainly increasing that one. This one decreases it a bit, but then resume and going back in a negative way. So it's going in the direction of the move. So it was a quick something that happened quickly. Loads of I'm not really looking at balances, but you can see where there's no numbers here. Effectively, it means we have zeros in the middle. So when there is a zero, it means very aggressive short in that case, and therefore no print on the hitting the bid. Lifting the offer. So I mean, it's pretty much all these guys selling, and you can tell that there isn't that much, at least in comparison to the sellers. There isn't that much in terms of the buyers. Again, same here. We can tell obviously it's picking up. Well, as we get, actually it's picking up a little bit towards the top and the end of the previous candle, the 230 candle, and therefore the top of it as well, as it closes here and opens here. So we went a bit up here trying to push a bit, but then sellers took over again and pushed quite hard and quite aggressively. And there are areas even down here where sellers are quite strong, and of course here the buyers are trying to, it's basically responsive selling, so they trying to get back in the game. We close here and we as it were, we open here again and we pushed again, and eventually closed a little bit higher, but we've been consolidating since so far, which is what we've seen on the TPO here. But all that to say that it did happen fairly quickly, and because it did happen fairly quickly, we are still living effectively a gap here, which, provided it's not being filled in today, it's going to be a gap we will find tomorrow. So this effectively, unless this changes, which is very possible, but unless this changes, this will be an area that we will be watching tomorrow. Whether we go back up again and go through this low volume node without stopping here and without accumulating volume, there's a ledge here in the middle, or whether we go well further down, and as you can tell, there is room to go further down and further further gaps down there, further low volume nodes. But yeah, I mean essentially the so I'm just increasing my low volume node area here, but essentially the we pretty much reached the area I had drawn to myself this morning. So it's 5:30 p.m. UK time. As I said, it was micro euro-dollar 60 micro contracts. Sorry, we've done $400. It's not too shabby. It's decent move, decent trading day, without being amazing. But bearing in mind we've got 7 micro contracts, it's not too bad at all. So I'm going to call it a day. Sorry, because I don't want to keep being in the market all day. And I want to actually change this to the proper. There we go. So that once we get here, I effectively want to close that trade, and I will call it a day at $370. I'm just leaving it a little bit of room to breathe in case we can still get a few points here. But it looks like there is no. I mean, as I said, we've sort of been consolidating, so there's no. In a way, there's no real reason for us to get out as such, other than the fact that I'm not in tomorrow, and I don't want to stay, and the day after tomorrow, so I don't want to stay in an unmanaged trade overnight if I'm not going to be picking it up tomorrow. So when it's like that, it's just time to get out, and I get out, and it's not too bad. So that's pretty much it for today. I sorry this video ended up lasting a little bit longer. Quite interestingly as well, on a side note, before I wrap this up, I was mentioning this morning earlier the engulfing bars. You can see we've had a fairly nice one as well at 230 here, and following that which in itself was also a down bar, but we had this down move following that again as well, and we as we go look at across the transition to the from the London session, European session, to the US session. So quite interesting to observe that again. Always everything in blue and in purple is engulfing bars, and quite often there is a move after following. Can be either up or down, but following an engulfing bar. So it's always something quite decent to look at. So yeah, I thought that was. I hope that was useful in terms of explaining a little bit the reasoning behind how I look at the order flow. Again, this is not a unique way to look at it. I haven't really gone into the microstructure and how we could sort of pinpoint this a little bit further and be more granular with a footprint, which in itself is another something else we can spend a lot of time in. But anyway, that should give an idea of the reasoning at least behind it, and trying to identify where value is shifting, where supply and demand is, who's in control, whether there is absorption, whether there is potential traders trapped, whether there is size, whether there isn't, where there isn't a size, where there might well be continuation, where it might well be worthwhile to slice an order or go all in, etc., etc. And that has to be dictated and by the day type. It has to be dictated by the order flow, and it's not something that I feel we decide as traders, because we do not control the market, and if anything, the market will control us. And it's just a question of reading what's happening, analyzing what's happening, and following what we're being told. Actually, although we have a pause here, I could well see the market going a little bit further down. There's always a break when it comes to that time, between being 12:30 in the US, so it's probably some sort of lunch break, so not much is happening, but I suspect it will pick up and go further down. So actually I'm gonna let my trade breathe a little bit more. I'm just placing myself under the point of control here, in the hope of letting the market breathe and go a little bit further down and make a bit more money. I just pause here for a minute, and we'll pick it up when it's finalized. But it looks like something very, very possible. Anyway, I'll resume, see where we are, if we're moving in either direction, and see how we progress from here. Okay, so it's past 6 p.m. GMT. I'm just gonna call this a day. I'm finishing the video here. If you've managed to watch it all the way here, well done. Any question, let me know. Any comments, let me know. And I hope you found it useful. Thank you. Bye bye.